Can you please welcome Jose to the stage? He is the Learning and Development Manager at Power Design, and we're going to be talking about kickstarting your microlearning approach and really the practical steps to getting started. I saw a lot of comments in here for folks who maybe this is new for you. Maybe the tool is new. Maybe the idea of this bite-size, what I call snackable learning, may be a different kind of concept. So Jose, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here. I love your energy, Christopher. Every time that I see the videos online and the conferences, I definitely love your energy. So it's an honor to be here and chat with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to chatting. And you know what? When you have 7 kids, 13 and under, you have to have a lot of energy. There's just no way. There's no way around it.
Listen, I got 5 kids, so I got you.
Whoa! I love it. Hey, you know what? I don't always run into other parents of big families, so that is fantastic. Well, so a little bit of background. So you are an early adopter of this. You pitched this. Tell me a little bit of the story, because this was something where you kind of saw this. You had this idea of bringing this to life. Yeah. What was that journey like for you?
Sure. Well, just do a little background. I'm working for Power Design, which is a multi-trade contractor. We focus on electrical, mechanical, plumbing, system technologies, and we got projects like all over the United States. Now, okay. I've been with Power Design for 1 year. So actually this month will be my 1 year. But I've been in the learning and development for over 20 years in the insurance industry. So I came in here to Power Design, and I'm always thinking, that brain of the passion for learning. It's like, okay, how can I help, with my new role? And, we have employees that are all over the United States. We have, from electricians, foremen, superintendents out in the field, right, in different locations, to, designers, engineers, project managers, our headquarters here in St. Pete, Florida. So I saw that as a challenge, of we have so many different people all over the place. It's a great opportunity for implementing some type of micro-learning strategy to be able to help, the company.
Well, yeah, because you've got an audience where the traditional, hey, they're sitting at a desk, let's make them go through it just isn't going to fly.
Right. So, it's perfect for, the growing of a culture. And, with 7 Taps, I remember it was I think 4 years ago when 7 Taps started. I was tabbing through Instagram and I got an ad of 7 Taps. I was like, whoa. And I quickly, back then, I sent it to my director back then. And I was like, hey, check this out. So I've known about 7 Taps for a while. We actually were trying it in my role before. So I had an experience. I love the product. I'm like, this will be great. So as I started here, I was already thinking 7 Taps will be the perfect tool to implement here. So that's kind of like how it started the ball.
Got it. Okay. Well, and the background into kind of your audience, what you were doing. So it was kind of almost the convergence of, hey, holy cow, here's the right thing. So I am curious though, what was the initial, was everybody just as excited and I see it as you did out of the gate? Or did you have some I don't know about this?
Yeah. That's a good question. So the way that we had to present it is that you have to present it in a way that, you're showing in action, right? So it's like, driving a car, right? Buying a car. You're not going to buy it just from looking at it. You generally want to test it out, right? For the most part, right? So what I did is that I was going through the onboarding, right? Because I'm new with the company. So I was going through onboarding training, onboarding process. And as I'm going through this, I'm like, okay, that will be a good opportunity. That's another good opportunity. So what I did is that I created my free account from 7 Taps, and I started making some little courses. So what I started doing is that I organically started sharing it with my peers and
I love that.
And by VP. So
yes, the Trojan horse. Yeah, the Trojan horse approach of hey, I just was doing this thing, and all.
So we were being in my one-on-one meeting, and we're talking, how's everything going? Oh, it's going great. It was great. And by the way, it's I was looking through it and the training and. Let's check it out. How cool would it be if I can, we have something similar and we can do this. And then all of a sudden,
that little subtle sales pitch where you're like, oh, wouldn't it be neat? Wouldn't it be amazing if we could do something like this?
So the reaction was like, wow, that's really cool. So then I had coffee talks with my VP of people, and same thing. We're talking, having coffee, and how's everything going? Oh, great, but I was going to training, and look at this. Like, how cool would it be if we can actually implement this? And again, the reaction was like, wow, what is that? That is great. That's amazing. So, and then socially and organically, that kind of like everybody started talking. So, oh, that's great. So because of that, and once I got everybody's like, wow, what is that I call again? Then we got the okay to get like the 30-day trial and do a full-blown pilot and to get the pilot going.
Okay. Well, I love it. So the first thing, if you saw me chuckling, the one was you were like, nobody buys a car without looking on it. And I was just laughing because I'm like, when we found out we were having number 6, there's not a lot of vehicles you can pack that many kids in. And so we had to special order one. So you can't really like go test drive these things. So that's why I was chuckling about that. But I love the approach you took with the, like, I have a feeling, just from my personal experience, that had you gone to people and said, hey, here's what I want to do. Hypothetically, I want to completely radically change the way we do training and yada, yada, yada. People's initial reactions would have been like, well, I don't know. I don't think that's going to work. Here's all the reasons why. Absolutely. How would we overcome this? Versus I love the subtle sales side of you that just kind of brought in this, hey, how do I inject this in and build the energy and the momentum? And honestly, I am very much an advocate of the like, do and ask for forgiveness versus like, well, I'm going to try and get all the permission before I do, obviously within reason.
Yeah, because you have the vision, but you got to show that vision. You know what I mean? And sometimes all the people don't have that vision because they're doing all the things, they have other priorities. So you have to show that and let them see it and touch it and live it.
Yes.
And that definitely helped out. So once we did the pilot, then what we did is I met with our amazing team of the learning and development, and then we worked together in looking at different use cases and different ways that we could use it. So we started creating and testing and doing different things, and actually doing a smaller rollout with employees and with onboarding, and then getting feedback. Let's see how are people reacting. And then we gather all that feedback, which was amazing. Everybody loved it. Every single person that used it, the user experience, the creating it, everybody loved it. So then I compiled all of that and then created, presentation.
Yeah.
And then now that we have all the data, use that presentation to then take it back to my director and the VP of people to get the final approval of like, hey, this is going to be great. Let's go ahead and go for it.
Well, and I think that's such a wise approach with this, because the other thing is too, there are times over my career of doing this, there are times where things don't work, and kind of that A/B testing of, hey, in concept, I like this, I think this could work, but you built the momentum, you got the energy around it, and then it was like, okay, let's like move this forward a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then eventually it just kind of took over. Were there any other things that you found along the way? Did you run into any barriers? Like, it sounds like it went overall pretty well, but were there any hiccups you hit where you went, okay, well, we kind of had to pivot or adjust?
There was a few, but honestly, the company overall, we're always forward thinking and progressive, and we're always looking at innovative ways to, do different things. So for the most part, everybody were open-minded. They just wanted to see it working. And the pilot was a big thing. I think that was the main, item that, I worked with Emma, by the way, shout out with Emma, because she was very helpful with working through the pilot with 7 Tabs and working with me. And thankfully there was nothing, no big barriers that we had to worry too much about.
I'm curious, the audience side. So obviously you've got the stakeholders you're subtly going like, hey, I just happened to throw together this course real quick. I love that. Those are great. As that went out to the field, out to these folks who probably, honestly, I don't fault people for having this default reaction when they think of digital learning, because quite frankly, a lot of it really sucks. And so the attitude that people tend to have is like, ugh. And it doesn't have to be that way. Did you see things, or did you get feedback from folks in the field as you started rolling this out? And what was that kind of response?
The response was great. They love how easy it is. They love how you can see it on the phone, but not only that, the iPads, we have a lot of workers on the field with
Okay.
iPads as well. They love how it looked on that. And also the flexibility to be able to see it on the computer. Because that was the other thing. It's like, okay, we have office workers. How is that going to be if they're on the computer? How does it look? And it looks fantastic on the computer as well. So
Okay.
that flexibility that looks great in all the different platforms, that was a big plus. They love how, again, how easy it is that you just, there's no logging, there's no 5 screens that they have to go to start a course, which was a big turnoff for other platforms that we looked into, was just part of the, the process as well. 7 Tasks was the easiest one, and everybody was, they just love how easy it is to use. So
Okay.
we had
Okay.
great feedback in that aspect.
Well, and I like how you brought up, the fact that you do have to think about your whole audience. And so the fact you were thinking about, yes, this might be great mobile, but we also still have people who might be behind a screen. And so it can't be a second class experience there either.
Right.
Did you have to, my final question for you, because otherwise I could sit and probably talk to you for the better half of the afternoon, is as you looked at the design side of it, because this is another element as I think about this with my teams and things like this is, it's not just about chopping up what you have into a bunch of little pieces, but actually deconstructing it and reconstructing it in meaningful ways. Was that something that, I speak to that a little bit, because I have to imagine it wasn't just, hey, let's just take what we had and now dump it into 7Taps. There was, because I think that can be a mistake too that people can make. It's just like, well, let's take what we had and just move it over here. Oh, it didn't work. And it's like, well, that's because you didn't do that. How did you go about that?
Right. Great question. So when we finally got the approval and we started the rollout, we had to take a more conservative approach. The company were growing a lot, so there's a lot of good changes happening in the first quarter. So we didn't want to like throwing a lot of things. So what we're doing is that we're just prioritizing, creating like a matrix of like, okay, here's all the things that we need to, that we need to work on, that we need to create training on. Let's prioritize. So what we've done is that we're doing a lot of like onboarding items right now, training preparation and training summaries. We're not doing full, intentional training or implementing, that kind of stuff as of yet. That's going to be like second quarter. Well, we're going to take this opportunity of the rollout, also learn a little bit more, because we're sharing it with a bigger audience now. So we'll take the opportunity now to create the SOPs, write, best practices, learn from those items, apply some of the things that I learned from Blair's presentation, which was great, by the way. And then, the plan is for later this year is to implement more strategic, learning paths, the drip campaigns and targeted training and things like that.
Okay. All right. Well, I just love that. And again, the journey's never over. It's like you learn, you adapt, you evolve, you keep going. But I just love the fact that, first of all, I love the story and the approach you took. It very much reminds me of the style which I found to be very effective.
Yeah,
because if you can show it and you let people see it and they don't feel like you're trying to change something, the defenses are down and they're more like, and then you do the little Trojan horse where you're like, ta-da, like here's where we go with it. So I love that. And I so appreciate you sharing your story and just hanging out with me. So we're gonna pull it up, but before we do, can everybody give Jose a round of emojis for this? And thank you for sharing your story and joining here and sharing your tips and tricks. As I start pulling the rest of the group up, I saw a bunch of questions coming up about our vehicle and what that means. So just on a lighter note, I am going to quick share this here because people may wonder, they're like, what is this vehicle you bought sight unseen that now houses your massive family? And that is the beast right there. So there you go. If you're wondering what is that,
that's what I need.
I actually like driving it even without the kids because people think, the FBI showed up and everybody gets out of your way. Okay.